year. And they had very concentrated spiritual practices. It would be like going on a month-long retreat anywhere, getting away from your daily life and going on a retreat. But the big problem with that is, can you carry it back to your daily life? Can you carry those feelings and those practices with you for the rest of the year till the next one comes up? Now remember, we've done quite a bit of, there's been quite a few descriptions of the Dooney fires, the all-night vigils, sort of, and intensification, and some, when they took their quilts out that night and formed a parade to the top of the Dooney Hill, and when Swami called for the halt, he went on with the women stopped and sat down with their quilts and blankets, and the men walked on and built a huge fire. Some went to sleep, some didn't. And they sang softly through the night. So we will start this evening's reading on page 147. After Kara French's account. In 1910, the ashram session was held again in June. This year, Swami Trigunatita stopped in Livermore en route to San Antone Valley and gave a prearranged lecture there that night on Hindu manners and customs. A flyer informed the public that the lecture would be given at the town hall and would begin at 8 p.m. sharp. Admission was free. As far as can be determined, there were no reports of the lecture in Livermore papers, so we can say no more about it at present. The same year saw great improvements in the development of the property. At the end of March, a Mr. Westman had joined the monastery in San Francisco. He was a carpenter by trade and eager to serve the cause of Vedanta. In April and May, an immense amount of work had been done by Mr. Westman with Mr. Horvath and another monastery member as his assistants. They built 5 new cabins with lumber hauled from Livermore, the road now made somewhat more passable by the county. They connected water to the kitchen and many other things. Trees were cut and hauled for the new barn and rocks for its foundations, and they began the building. A new and larger dining room was built. A new storage cellar was excavated and lined with stone. The dining room could now accommodate 2 tables, one for the men and one for the women, with a small raised table at the side, at which Swami Trigunatita sat, reading aloud from a sacred text and commenting upon it and scarcely eating, though the food was excellent. He himself having done almost all the cooking for the 37 students who attended the session that year. Now there's a little footnote. Mr. Anderson, a monastery member, baked at least 60 loaves of bread per week, in addition to cornbread, biscuits, and other delectable baked goods for all. So Swami was doing the rest of the cooking. The bread was supplied by Mr. Anderson. In addition, Kara French noticed he held 5 classes daily except Sunday, 3 meditation classes, morning, noon, and evening, and 2 Gita classes. During mealtime, Swami discoursed while we ate, ever vigilant. He hardly seemed to require food or sleep. In the holy atmosphere, and in the huge presence of the Swami which filled the ashram, the students were naturally happy. There was laughter and play among them. Smear God over everything was one of his favorite counsels, and at Shanti Ashram this was not hard to follow. punctuating, as it were, that constant undercurrent of joy. Training went on, work was done properly, attentively, or the culprit was held to account. Once I received a sharp criticism for carelessness, Cara French related and continued. The care of kitchen and dining room was divided amongst 3 groups of women, alternating daily, and the men had discovered salt in their sugar bowls. Not good. Swami asked who'd refilled them. No answer. So I, being head of the group that day, said, I am responsible. Swami's excoriation was pretty severe. When I left the dining room after the meal, Dira ran after me saying, Don't feel badly. Don't mind it, Sarla. He did not mean it for you. Don't let them see you cry. I turned to assure her I was not crying, though I had not much to say, feeling as I did inside. There was never a dull moment during these annual sessions at Shanti Ashram. One year, Cara French recalled, and the year very well could have been 1910, Durga jokingly referred to the swift tempo and many changes at this so-called contemplative retreat. And on the following morning at the breakfast table, we heard the droll comment from Swami's direction, Yes, it is just like a vaudeville performance, something doing all the time. Who told him I said that? Dara demanded of us. No one had. No one had even the opportunity under our strict rules. But somehow Swami had gotten it, and he had added thereto his own comments and humorous interpretation. The Duni so, as they say, never a dull moment at these contemplative retreats. They were busy all the time. The Duni fire that year of 1910 was held on a clear new moon night. It could have been this year, with 34 students present, that the flames leapt up to receive a strange kind of offering, a symbolic sacrifice for an absent student, as Cara French recalled it. This rite became almost a most beautiful spectacle. Before we left the city, the women were instructed, each one to take a small flask of alcohol, brandy or whiskey. No reason was given, and some thought it was in case of snake or insect bites. Only a few guessed Swami had other purposes, and when we were told to bring these and lay them at his feet on Duni night, we felt he intended to free someone not present who was struggling his utmost against his desire. Now, if you had the book, we have lots of pictures of the people, the students in 1910. One picture of the women students. There's a Dr. Chandler, Mrs. Burnham, Mrs. Alexander, Mrs. Laurie, Dr. Sinclair, Miss McKinnon, Mrs. Kyle, May Kyle, Mrs. Collagen, niece of Mrs. Kyle, Mrs. Townsend, Mrs. Heueau, I can't say it. Mrs. Brickwood, Mrs. Wahlberg, Mrs. Peterson, Mrs. Allen, Mrs. Westerberg, Mrs. French, and Mrs. Petty. And then they have the men students seated together around the flag on the Duni Hill. Mr. Brown, Mr. Day, rancher, Mr. Schenderlin, Mr. Jewell, Mr. Allen, Mr. Westman, Mr. Anderson, Mr. Westberg, Mr. Bookbauer, Miss Hugh Kyle, Beverly College, and I think she must be a child, James Woolberg, Charles Woolberg, and Mr. Horvath and Mr. Page. As the Swami poured the alcohol, he was at the Duni fire, chanting continually in Sanskrit. Swami opened one bottle after another, pouring its contents on the fire that licked it up into most fanciful shape and beautiful coloring. On the night of the full moon, yet another Dooney fire was held in 1910 with a different purpose, the christening of the two Wolberg boys with a Hindu ceremony. As we shall see later, such ceremonies were now and then performed by Swami Trigunatita by way he felt of bringing East and West closer together, as Swamiji had wished. One of the students, Henry Fay Page, wrote a general description of the two 1910 Dooney fires. The most picturesque occasion was that on the night of the new moon, and especially on the night of the full moon, when the huge fire on Dooney Hill was lighted. The Swami conducted the all-night service, the chanting, the offering of flowers to the fire with a prayer by each person, and the golden-tongued flames leaping towards the star-strewn dome of heaven stir the soul as no other symbolic form of worship. To a mind finely tuned to the truth of things, the symbol may be the reality itself, the fire and immaterial power destroying every impurity of the devotee. The members of the Ramakrishna Monastery in San Francisco, of which more later, did an enormous amount of work by way of developing the ashram. Apart from the construction work already mentioned, the soil, arid though it was cultivated largely by a single member of the monastery, a Mr. Schenderlin, who was then the caretaker. In the monastery notes for the month of March 1910, one finds a paragraph written by Mr. Brown extolling Mr. Schenderlin's winter labor. Mr. Schenderlin, in addition to the usual 2 acres, has plowed and sown 6 more. He made posts and fenced it all with barbed wire. He worked for the neighbors and earned enough money with which to buy feed for the horse, to plow and harrow, and still further gave his time and labor that he might earn sufficient to buy the seed to sow the 6 acres. In addition to this, he was compelled day after day in the cold and wet for hours to climb the trees to obtain moss for the cows to eat. Their regular feed having been exhausted, he has worked very hard. Aside from all the work they did on the property itself, several of the monastery members who were fit enough often walked most of the way from Livermore to the ashram, about 37 miles over mountainous roads. They also walked back, usually over Mount Hamilton to San Jose, and they looked upon this long trek, both coming and going, as a holy pilgrimage, as indeed it was. There was no session at the ashram in 1911, Swami Trigunatita being busy in Southern California. But in 1912, a summer even hotter than usual, 30 students accompanied the Swami via Livermore in 2 4-horse wagons over the narrow, rugged, tortuous, and at times terrifying road to the valley. This year, the scriptures taken up in the yoga classes were in the morning Patanjali's aphorisms, in the early afternoon Yoga Vashishta, and in the evening Vivekachudamani, and the 2 Gita classes were held in the dining room as usual. Several events of moment took place that year. First of all, it had been pointed out to the Swami that the hill, the trail to the top to which he had blazed himself in 1903 and where the Dooney fire had been held from that year forward, was not, after all, the highest hill on the property. Moreover, its summit had become home to a clutch of rattlesnakes. Therefore, during the first part of the summer of 1912, the men devoted the hours between classes to making 2 winding trails to the top of the truly highest hill. 1 trail for the men, 1 trail for the women. The new hill was named Siddhigiri, Hill of Realization. At the summit, a triangular bed for the fire was made with a circular trench surrounding it as a sort of safeguard. Once the trails were ready, the nighttime procession up Siddhagiri to Duni night was a beautiful sight, in the words of Kara French. Following the Swami's previous instructions, we strapped pillows and quilts on our backs, carried flashlights to reveal the trail, and small sprigs representing the sins or faults and desires we wished to overcome filled our hands. 3 of us, who were to sing and chant, carried hymn books. When the time set for the start arrived, the women with Dhirananda in the lead began to slowly march toward and climb the hill. At the top, Swami was already seated. The men, having arrived from the opposite side, were also seated, those appointed to feed the flames during the night being nearest the huge pile of logs, which had been dragged up by the horses the day before. The women in front began chanting as we neared the last turn of the trail, thus announcing our presence, then filed slowly to the place assigned to each by the Swami. Discourse, meditation, scripture occupied the hours, broken only on our part by hymns and chants, and the pause when Swami called us one by one in turn to circle the blazing fire, then prayerfully and sincerely confess our faults openly before consigning them to the destroying and purifying flames. To this account, Edith Allen added, "What huge fires and ghee by the bucketful." The term "by the bucketful" is an Americanism and should not be taken literally. These bucketfuls of ghee had been rendered, no doubt from butter, that had been supplied by Mr. Gerber's generous cows. And we took flowers dipped in ghee and threw them onto the fire and said out loud, so that all could hear, the faults that we were throwing away. It took courage. Some could not do it. They sat silent. Some threw small faults into the fire, and a few had courage to let others know their inmost faults. On a more mundane level, an extremely important discovery was made at Shanti Ashram in the year 1912. The lack of water had always been the greatest drawback at the ashram. At the very first, water had been hauled by the barrel at 75 cents per barrel from a distant source in the valley. Then, still in Swami Trigunati's time, a spring had been enlarged by blasting, and a pool made in which one could bathe or wash one's clothes. From there, buckets of clear, cool water were carried by the students to the kitchen or the tents. In 1901, a pipe was laid, which brought running water to the heart of the ashram, though the carrying of buckets was also needed. Several years later, a well was dug by Mr. Peterson, and a windmill and a water tank carted in from Livermore over that perilous road were installed, but the well gave little water until 1912. It was this year that water, more precious than gold, was struck. According to the monastery notes for June 20, 1912, Mr. Westman and Mr. Nelson dug down 5 feet into the well begun by Mr. Peterson and found at 5 feet a strong flow of fine water, and even were unable to go further without a good pump. The ashram is now plentifully supplied with water for drinking, cooking, and washing. Footnote, but still not plenty enough for irrigating. The strenuous routine, the weeks of hard tapasya, the days of relaxing holiday, the nights of fire and stars continued throughout June of 1912. None were aware that this month would be the last that Swami Trigunatita would spend with his students at this ideal training ground for spiritual aspirants. Or, in his prescient way, did Swami Trigunatita know? It was toward the end of that session in June 1912 that he threw out to the gathered students a particularly demanding challenge, one that would test their sincerity to its depths. Cara French, who was present, related the incident in her reminiscences. In a very earnest talk during one dinner hour, after urging us to deeper sincerity, to the necessity of utilizing the opportunity given us and not frittering time away, he concluded suddenly by saying, "All those who are ready to pledge themselves and will be glad, willingly and cheerfully, to go through all sorts of trials, sufferings, misfortunes, failures, and sorrow, to be free in this life, raise your hands." What a stupendous question. Hands flew up around me, but I became startled. How could I promise? I did not know what might come. How could I pledge myself to meet it willingly and cheerfully? How was I sure of my ability to do so? Mother Nature seems to bring enough to test one without throwing down the gauntlet to her. Thus reasoning while Swami was silently waiting for this response. Some were afraid, some refused to comply, saying they would rather go through more lives. Still arguing mentally, my hand slowly rose, inch by inch, toward my shoulder. Up came imperatively from Swami. Still hesitant, my hand crept to my head. Up! Again came a sharp command. The women were not allowed to look at Swami, not even when addressed by him, but I felt his eyes watching me. Finally, I raised my hand to arm's length. Then a prologue of Sanskrit chants. Very solemnly, Swami called on all of the unseen higher powers, gods, and divine beings to witness the vows we had made that day. It was a terrifying moment, one never to be forgotten in this life by one student at least. Thus came an end to an era at Shanti Ashram. Magical days, said a Swami of the Ramakrishna order when told of those months in the San Antone Valley under Swami Trigunatita's guidance. Magical days. They will never come again. Any questions or comments? Though it seems very severe, it's not. It's just demanding commitment. Swami Chaitananda used to say to us, we all say we want to realize God, but he said, how many of us, if God came up and said, come with me now, would come willingly or would say, just a second, I have one thing I have to take care of. Most people would say, just a second. They're not ready to drop everything. Well, we saw it with Jesus when he said, come follow me, and some did and some didn't.
I'd ask him for ID.
Well, that would be your way, John.
Are you really God? Prove it.
They don't have to.
Neither do I.
Okay. So, the next chapter, which we'll be starting with, completed Shanti Ashram, and this is the first Hindu temple in the whole Western world, which is still available to go see in San Francisco, the old temple. They still hold classes in it. It's gorgeous. You can see it. It's just been refurbished. It's been made earthquake-proof, though it survived the earthquake quite well. But now it has all of the pinnings to make sure it stays up. So let's just start a little bit here. Remember, they've been holding classes in people's homes. Let us go back now to 1903, the year of beginnings, when under the leadership of Swami Trigunatita, the Vedanta Society of San Francisco became an organized society with its headquarters at 40 Steiner Street. When The work in Southern California was energized. And when, for the first time, the Swami took a group of students to Shanti Ashram to start what would later become an almost annual month-long retreat of disciplined spiritual life with 5 rigorous classes daily. And at every session, whether in November or June, an all-night Duni fire to consume all ashes all the personal samskaras that were thrown into it. As we have seen, the first session at Shanti Ashram came to a close at the end of November, and the students returned to their respective homes in San Francisco and Oakland. The city work went on as before with a Sunday lecture, 2 weekly classes, and perhaps private interviews throughout the week, though not too stringent ones. Swami Trigunatita was still babying his students. He was not yet acting the part of stern disciplinarian, as he would do later on, determined then to root out whatever deep-lying, hidden faults stood in the way of those who had put their trust in him. This is what you do when you get a guru. You put your trust in them. You know that everything they're doing is for your own benefit. They are helping you get over your deep-seated samskaras, which often we don't even know about, but we find out. Nor had the time come when he could no longer visit among the students, lest jealousy and envy arise among some of them. The Duni fires at Shanti Ashram having not yet completed their work. The month from December 1903 through December 1904, at 40 Steiner Street, were still in a honeymoon mode, the prelude to rigorous, no-nonsense training. Those were such sweet, happy days, Kara French would write in her reminiscences. Swami came and went amongst us all so freely, always busy with plans for the week, yet ever ready to banter, to tease, and woe-betide anyone who thought to get the best of him. His flashing wit and swift repartee caught and silenced one, yet all in pure fun. Like a child, he played pranks. There was, for instance, the French's party. Though Kara French had not been among the first group to go to Shanti Ashram, she wanted to give a party for those who had been there, bringing them together in her home, which was very near the Vedanta Society headquarters. Swami Trigunatita approved of the idea, but said he did not think he himself could come. This was, of course, a major disappointment, but Kara went ahead with her plans, not mentioning to the others that she had invited him. The evening came, and the guests gathered. The last guest to arrive, Kara would write, was Dira, duly instructed to offer apologies for Swami. Just then, as she was solemnly doing so, I heard his merry laugh. Like a mischievous boy, he had stealthily trailed behind Dira up the stairs to surprise us all, and was soon in the midst of the hearty welcome which greeted his appearance. Even in his classes at Steiner Street, Swami Trigunatita had his moments of fun and laughter. One evening, Kara French recalled, the whole class was in a titter when, in a serio-comic mood, Swami introduced the lines of a music hall ditty that had caught the popular ear and was whistled on the streets. It was supposed to be a little naughty. Swami made no effort to suppress the laughter which greeted him, as the students recognized the lilt of the chorus. Every little movement has a meaning of its own. Then, smiling at his own daring, Swami took the words as his topic for the class instruction, putting a highly philosophical interpretation upon the somewhat racy song. But even during these early carefree, happy days, there was unrest in the society. Some of the students of Swami Trigunatita had not given up hope that he would return to take up at least some part of the work. The very thought created discontent. For instance, in her memoirs, Ida Ansel, whom we met earlier, wrote, "I loved both the Swamis. Also, I had close friends on both sides of the issue who tortured me by their persuasions to join this or that faction. I remained miserably neutral until a petition was sent to Swami Brahmananda asking that Swami Trigunatita be permanently assigned to the California work. This I refused to sign, and Swami Trigunatita was displeased." The petition or letter of appeal to which Ida Ansel refers was written by the executive committee of the society, and very possibly was approved by Swami Trigunatita, who understandably was anxious to put an end to the disruptive unrest in the society by having his position confirmed in writing by the president of the Ramakrishna order. The letter also served as a vote of confidence by the membership, and we'll read it next week. Because this is like board meeting stuff. We'll save that. Any comments? This is all, I mean, when we stop and think about how really difficult the situation is to come over to a whole absolutely opposite culture with hardly any training in India, because they didn't have a lot of those that had gone to English schools had some contact with the English people, but they really had not really contact in a casual sense or in a one-on-one sense with any of the Westerners. And so these young men, and they were young when they came, they were mostly in their 20s and 30s, if they were 30. When they came to this culture, they had a few friends that Swamiji had made, and Swami Trigunatita for Swami Trigunatita. Few Western friends who welcomed them and took care of them, but they had to start literally from scratch and build the entire thing. And these Swamis did it willingly, joyfully, and never looked back. They had, we look at all the Swamis that were here. Trigunatita, okay. Then we had Ashokananda, we had Nikhilananda, we had Prabhavananda, we had Asheshananda, Satprakashananda, Pavitrananda. All these were young men sent over here with basically very little training in Western culture. They had met Sister Nivedita, maybe, and some of them had met Tontine and Christine, but they had met, and Mrs. Oli Bull, and some of the women from Boston, but they had really no idea. The mother of Mayavadi, what's her name? Mrs. Savior, but they had no idea of the culture, and they came and they blended right in. I mean, when you look at it, and that was less than about 100 years ago, because most of them arrived by 1930. Trigunatita was arriving in 1901, But I mean, in 100 years, this is what they have, from sheer dedication to Ramakrishna and Holy Mother. This is what they have accomplished. This is why we have places to come to. I mean, we are so lucky and so blessed. And if those of you that have gurus, you better know that you are really lucky, because in India you barely get to see your guru. Over here you can have their personal phone number and call them anytime. I mean, this is unheard of. The blessings that we have here are unbelievable. And we tend to take them for granted because it just seems like normal. Believe me, it isn't. Okay, so I'll get off my soapbox now. This week, Saturday, we will have our gospel reading class at 5 o'clock with Swami Trigunatita. And Sunday, we'll have Swami Vedanta from South Pass discussing the puzzle of personal identity. That's a good one, I think. That's a good title. What is our personal identity? Okay. Any other? I don't think we have any other announcements for this month. So, hope to see you on the Zoom, and everyone take care. As I say, we're freezing up here because the fog's in. I think there might be a hint of sunshine just now, so according to the weather report, this will be a sunny day. It came out at 5:30. Om Shanti, 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 Hari Om Tat Sat, Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. We'll see you next week.